Welcome to Teaching with Technology, and we're going to be doing a real quick view as to what it might look like in a classroom like mine that uses blended learning. And I'm going to focus these videos on just some ideas on what it might look like using both stations and talking about something called an in-class flip, which is what this video will focus on, and something called stations and using after class for their videos. So we're going to focus in this video on in-class flipping. So what that means is rather than having students watch the lecture at home, you might have different stations set up in which in one of those stations or more than one, students will watch a short video at their station during class. So it might be one, it might be more, depending on what you're having them do. And this information might help them perform a lab if they're in science class, some sort of research if they're learning about something in biology or learning something in the English class or art history. Or content. So in math class, that might be teaching them the quadratic formula real quickly and then giving them practice problems afterwards to work on. So this may be in addition to other forms of blended learning used. So you might have some in-class flipping, and they might also have had to have watched another video to come into class. You might have another different activity once they finish watching the video. It just depends how you want to set it up. So in my classroom, if we have in-class flipping or maybe they watched a video to come into class, they might have some in-class activities. So my format for my classes, no matter what method I use to deliver the material, I will have a variety of different in-class activities to help them further master their concepts. And what that allows me to do is to spend some time as a full group to go over any questions that they might have. It also allows me to go around individually and circulate the room. Now in this picture you're going to see that I have a picture of my desks here and a set of 3 different cups. I have green, yellow, and red. So what I use for this to help me to know where to go within the classroom is students will change the color of the cup based on what they're doing. So green means I'm good, our group doesn't need any help, we understand what we're doing. Yellow means we have a question, but we can keep going until you have time to come get to us. And red means we cannot move any further, we're totally stuck, please help us as soon as possible. So some different ideas of what you might, activities you might have. I do scavenger hunts where they have to move around the room. I have projects that they might have to work on, hands-on activities. It might just be practice worksheets. So I'm just going to write some of these down for you. So worksheets, projects, hands-on. So that could be building, that could be labs, that could mean a lot of things. It could be speaking if you're in language, okay, where they have to learn some vocabulary and then speak it. And within each of these stations, what I try to do, there's different ways you can do these stations, but what I try to do is have mastery checks. So when a student is working through different sets of concepts, when they feel ready on that particular concept, so it might be objective quadratic formula. So it might just be I can, given a quadratic equation, use the quadratic formula to find the x-intercepts. So if a student feels, after all the activities that I had them do based in their stations up here, okay, if they feel comfortable, they can ask for a mastery check. Now this is to be done on their own. It's like a little mini pre-quiz, and my students must score an 80% or higher, okay, in order to be ready to move on. If they don't get more than an 80%, then I don't tell them the answers to their mastery check. I just circle the problem that they got incorrect, and then I look at the activities that I had given them, and I will give them follow-up instruction if they need it, or just follow-up problems to work on to help them master so that they can come back and fix the problem to receive their 80% to move on and get credit. So it sounds very complicated, but it does run very smoothly once you get the hang of it, and it allows students to have a chance to feel comfortable going into an assessment. So the question is, what might a video look like? So I'm just going to give you a quick, might be an in-class flip, and so I'm going to give you a really quick explanation. It will be math related because that's what I teach, and then you're going to have some follow-up things afterwards to work on. So we're going to learn about multiplying polynomials. So in this video, I'm making an assumption. I probably already had one set up that explains what a polynomial is and isn't, how they're written, and all of that. So I'm just going to go straight to examples, assuming that you've seen a polynomial. If not, that's okay. There's no pressure here. So we're going to work on multiplying, and I'm going to start with two binomials. So we're going to multiply 2x minus 1 times 4x plus 3. Okay, so now you may have heard of the FOIL method, but if the polynomials are anything bigger than two binomials, it gets very complicated and easy to make mistakes. So I'm going to show you my method that I teach my students, and that is using a grid. So I have two binomials, which means they both have two terms, and the signs in front of them follow. So I'm going to make a grid that is 2 across and 2 down. So it's going to be a 2 by 2, and it doesn't matter where I put the two binomials, whether I put the 2x minus 1 across the top or across the side, but each box represents one term. So the first box is 2x, the second is the minus 1, and along the side the first box is 4x, and the second box is plus 3. So what I'm going to go through and multiply. So for this first box, I'm going to multiply the two that are touching it. So that's going to be the 2x and the 4x. 2 times 4 is 8. X times x gives me x squared. So again, students have already had a video or an explanation on how to multiply variables with different degrees. So I have x times x, x to the first times x to the first gives me x squared. So now to get this second box, I am going to multiply the 4x and the minus 1. Negative 1 times 4 gives me negative 4, and then x times no x's gives me just a plain old x. So I get negative 4x, and then to get the bottom left, I get 2x times 3 gives me 6x, and last but not least, 3 times negative 1 gives me negative 3. So once I have the box filled in, I can combine by adding or subtracting like terms. Notice there is no like term for the 8x squared, but I do have two boxes that have just plain old x. I have a negative 4x and a 6x. So when I add those together, I get positive 2x. And again, the negative 3 has no like terms, so I'm just going to pull out the minus 3. So 2x minus 1 times 4x plus 3 gives me 8x squared plus 2x minus 3. Let's look at one more, okay, a little more difficult, and then you'll move on. So let's do x squared minus 4x plus 2 times 3x minus 1. Okay, so now I've got a trinomial. So that's a 3 by 2. So I'm going to do 3 across the top and 2 down. It doesn't matter what orientation you use. So I'm going to place my x squared in the first, minus 4x, and then plus 2. And across the side, 3x minus 1, and go through and fill in. So I've got x squared times 3x. That's 1 times 3 is 3, and x squared times x gives me x to the third. The next middle box is 3x times negative 4x. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. X times x is x squared. And then 2 times 3x gives me 6x. So I'm going to fill in the bottom row to give me negative x squared. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4x, and negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2. So combining my like terms, I'm left with 3x cubed negative 12x squared minus another x squared is negative 13x squared. 6x plus 4x is plus 10x, and then minus 2. So the beginning question, the trinomial times the binomial, gives me 3x cubed minus 13x squared plus 10x minus 2.